All right, guys, hello and welcome back. I'm going to be going over 1.10, 1.10, Prejudice. As always, you can find this by logging into your class and then the purple one for ELA, and then going to content will take you here. You follow this table of contents over here. Please go down to 110. Click on it, and as you can see, there is a learn and an assessment attached to this. I won't go over the assessment, but I will go over the learn portion. So let's get started. You always want to do that lesson introduction. All right, prejudice introduction. In this lesson, you will meet a man who fought against the mistreatment of an entire nation, the people of India. And as you can see, we have, let me make this a little bit smaller, sorry. Let me read proportion so you can see the very bottom of it. All right, and we've got one of two slides, so we're going to go on to two. And review the lesson guides to learn about the activities you're going to be doing in this lesson. So you click on that, and you download that, and be sure to go over the lesson objectives. You're going to be comparing and contrasting, demonstrating knowledge of authors and characters, describe characters by speech, actions, interactions with others, identify character traits, motivations, recognize devices used by the author to achieve purpose, including language, organization, and structure, identifying examples of explicit meaning in informational text, identify print and electronic resources to determine and correct spelling, identify spelling patterns, use spelling rules to improve spelling, like I before E words in a vowel and Y, final E before a suffix, when to double, and when adding a suffix, pluralization rules. All right, materials. You're going to need a graphic organizer. So we're going to go ahead and download that. It downloads right here. And you open it. And in order to be able to type on it, you click Enable Editing, and that gets rid of that yellow bar. And go ahead and put your name. Let me just put Mrs. Jordan. That's what it is. Mrs. Jordan. There we go. All right, and then I'm going to put this off to the side so I can pull it up as needed, but I don't need it right now. Okay. And that's all there is to it. There's no vocabulary terms apparently to go over on this one. So you go back to where you were. And now that we're on 2 of 2, we can go up here to this arrow and click forward. Prejudice 1, Gandhi. Earlier, we read about Marian Anderson and her individual struggles against prejudice. Now you will read about Mahatma Gandhi and his methods of nonviolent protest that helped bring equality and democracy to India. Along the way, he inspired people around the world to protest injustice using nonviolence. You're going to read Mahatma Gandhi, Truth in Action. Use the reading graphic organizer to apply reading strategies. So if you didn't already download it, you can download it from there, but I'm just going to pull it over here. Let's discuss real quick. So you're going to be talking, and you're going to be answering what type of text this is: a memoir, narrative, autobiography, expository, informational, technical, etc. How do you know what type of text this is? What features does it have that tell you this text type? Make predictions based on the headings, titles, images, and the text. So we can do that before we even read. So I'm going to pull this off to the side. Here's our story, so go ahead and click on it. That's where you find your story. Okay, if it doesn't take you right to the story, and we've got the main page here, go ahead. We know we're in Influential People is the unit we're in, Unit 1. And there it is, Mahatma Gandhi, Truth in Action. It's located on 329 in your textbook if you actually have a physical one. All right, before we read, just looking at the title, Mahatma Gandhi, Truth in Action by Vanessa Wright. Is this an autobiography? Is it written by Gandhi? No. So it's probably just a regular biography. So that's what I'm going to type here. How do we know it's a biography? because it is about a real life person and is based on facts. It could be a historical fiction, but I kind of doubt it. We can go back in and change it if it turns out to be. Make predictions. It's going to be about Gandhi. And I have to see how to spell his name. Gandhi. Okay. All right. What is the most powerful force mankind can command? Fire, a great army, nuclear energy? Mahatma Gandhi answered, nonviolence is the greatest force at the disposal of mankind. It is mightier than the mightiest weapon of destruction devised by the integrity of man. But how can the calm voice of nonviolence be heard over the howl of a mob or the whine of a bullet? What is the power of truth in an unjust world? Thief, thought Mahatma Gandhi. I'm a thief. 15 years old, Mahatma looked at the gold in his hand. He had stolen it from his brother. It was not his first theft. Earlier, he had stolen coins from the family servants. But now the gold in his hand burned like a hot coal. He sat down and wrote a letter of confession to his father. Would his father punish him? Mahatma watched as his father read the note. Tears rolled down his father's cheeks, wetting the paper. But there was no scolding. Silently, his father tore the letter into pieces. Later, Gandhi realized that in his father's response, he had seen the principle of nonviolence in action. He dedicated his life to that principle. When Gandhi was born in India in 1869, the country was under British rule. As a young man, he sailed to England too, and we have a word. Disposal of means that can which be used as it pleases. Devised, invented, created, thought up. Ingenuity, skill or cleverness in inventing. So, nonviolence is a great force that can be used by mankind. It's mightier than the mightiest weapon of destruction that is created by the cleverness of man. There you go. And we scroll down here and click or go to the next page. He went to England to finish his schooling. In London, he trained to become a lawyer. On his return to India, he struggled to establish his legal career. Since he was meeting with little success in India, he decided to make the long trip to South Africa, where many Indians lived and worked. He was appalled, which means horrified or shocked, to find in some parts of South Africa, Indians were not allowed to vote or to own more than a certain amount of property. They had to be off the streets by 9 p.m. and pay a tax because they were Indians. Once Gandhi himself purchased a first-class train ticket, only to be told after he had boarded that he had to sit in the third-class compartment reserved for Indians and Africans. When Gandhi refused, he was taken off the train. Gandhi knew that such laws were unjust. It was time to tell the truth and to take action. So he wrote letters to newspapers, talked with government officials, and held peaceful protests to draw attention to the unjust laws. He also started a group called the Natal Indian Congress, a forum, a place for discussion of ideas, in which Indians in South Africa could discuss the problems facing them and decide how to solve them together. While he was in South Africa, Gandhi developed the idea of satyagraha, I don't know, a word that means the pursuit of truth. For Gandhi, satyagraha means that nonviolent struggle against injustice, especially to help those who were poor or suffering due to unjust laws or customs. Gandhi never used violence against his adversaries, enemies. Satyagraha meant solving problems peacefully with respect for all. Satyagraha was not an easy path to follow. Once a mob of white South Africans threw stones and rotten eggs at Gandhi. Not very nice at all. Officials offered to take the member of the mob to court, but Gandhi refused. What is the use, he asked. I am sure when the truth becomes known, they will be sorry for their conduct. For about 20 years, Gandhi fought for equal rights for Indians in South Africa. During this time, the news spread about his nonviolent struggles, and many people were drawn to the idea of satyagraha. In 1915, Gandhi returned with his family to India. Little did he know, but he was about to face one of the greatest challenges of his life. In his own home country, Gandhi found his people suffering under the rule of the British. The British had been gaining power in India since the mid 1700s and had officially taken control of India in 1858. Since taking control, Britain had made laws that imposed harsh taxes and stopped Indian trade with other countries. Under these laws, many Indians became poor. The laws were unjust, but with only a few Indians allowed to participate in the government, how could things be changed? Eventually, many Indians began to demand independence from Britain, but the people were not unified. They spoke different languages, quarreled over religion and social class, and were scattered across the land in cities and tiny villages, long before telephones or the internet could connect them. The British had a strong government and an army to enforce their laws. To win their independence, the Indians would have to overcome their differences and work together to defeat their common adversary. It looked as if no one could unite the Indian people. Then one day in January 1915, a large crowd of Indians, rich and poor, from cities and villages and from every social class, gathered around a dock in Bombay. They were there to, next page, cheer the man they hoped would lead them to independence as he led the Indians in South Africa, Mahatma Gandhi. First, to get reacquainted, or introduced again, with his country, Gandhi went around India by train, meeting and talking with people. He traveled in crowded third-class compartments with hard benches and sometimes had to sleep standing up. Everywhere he went, he saw poverty and disease. In 1919, the British faced laws forbidding protest in India. Violence broke out, especially in the city of Amritsar. One British general responded by having his soldiers open fire on the group of men, women, and children in the marketplace. In that terrible incident, 379 people died and more than 1,000 others were injured. As news of the massacre, which meant violent killing of a number of helpless people, spread, violence threatened to engulf or swallow up the entire country. But Gandhi offered another way. He urged Indians to participate in non-cooperation against the British. Non-cooperation meant that the Indians would boycott. To protest, they refused to buy or deal with British goods, take their children out of British schools, and pay not a single rupee or Indian coin of British taxes. Eventually faced with a firm and unyielding opposition of hundreds and thousands of Indians, the British began to compromise. Where violence had failed, Satyagraha had prevailed. With Satyagraha, said Gandhi, you can bring the world to your feet. Still, for Gandhi, it was not enough to bring down British rule. He also wanted to build up India from within. So he reached out to the outcasts of Indian society, the poorest of the poor, called the untouchables. At that time, most of India's people lived under a caste system. Each person was born into a certain class or caste and had to follow its rules. But untouchables were considered outside the caste system. Everyone shunned them. Members of other castes feared they would be polluted if even the shadow of an untouchable touched them. But Gandhi called the untouchables children of God and declared that he would fast, that means he would not eat, go without eating, until something was done to make their lives better. Through his efforts, untouchables were allowed into temples and invited to participate in Indian assemblies, and the British agreed never to make any law that called a person an untouchable. Still, it was not enough. Gandhi also wanted Indians to be self-sufficient. That means able to provide for oneself, not relying on others. He burned piles of British clothing in front of Indians and encouraged them to spin their own clothes and grow their own food or buy it from each other instead of from the British. He stopped wearing Western clothes, learned to spin cloth, and wore only a cotton shawl, a dhoti, a kind of loincloth, which had been spun by Indian hands. He also founded communities where people came together to grow their own food, provide for themselves, and work for the good of all people in the group. For more than 30 years, Gandhi led the Indians in a nonviolent struggle against the British, and at last in 1947, the British granted Indians their independence. When Hindus and Muslims started fighting in India, Gandhi went on a fast to try to bring them together. Sadly, less than 6 months after India became independent, Gandhi was assassinated as he walked to a prayer meeting. Millions of people around the world mourned his passing. All his life, Gandhi worked tirelessly against intolerance, violence, and injustice. He helped bring independence and democracy to India. He stood by his principles of truth and nonviolence to make a more just society for India and a better world for all people. The Indian people called him Mahatma, which means great soul, and Bapu, father. Gandhi's message lived after him. Around the world, champions of human rights still study his ideas and try to use them to help people in their own countries. In the United States, the Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. once said that Gandhi's words and actions showed him how to use nonviolence to lead the civil rights movement in the 1960s. My life is my message, Gandhi once said. You must be the change you wish to see in the world. And I believe that's the end. Yep, that is the end. So now we go back, and there's no extra there, so we're just going to click to go forward. Sorry, I forgot to turn off my put on here. Okay, on this part, whenever you see multiple choice questions, you want to copy and paste those into a Word document. So you're going to go in and you're going to go to this little window button down here, open up a window, or if you don't have Windows, then you can use Google Docs. Those are free to use. Okay, and it opened up over here. And you just click and get a Word document open. And then I'm going to title it 1.10 review. Okay, and I'm going to copy this question. Copy. Oh, I lost it. Hold on, give me just a second. Let me pull it out from here. Okay. And then let me make this side by side. Okay. And then Control V will paste it. Okay. All right. So why do you think the author included the anecdote about Gandhi as a teenager? A, to make Gandhi seem like a normal American teenager. B, to show where Gandhi got his inspiration for his ideas of nonviolence. C, to show that Gandhi was a criminal in his youth. Or D, to show readers that Gandhi's father was foolish. Okay. Maybe this. I don't know. Let's check. No, I was wrong. So maybe, oh, you got to try again first. Maybe to show that Gandhi was a criminal in his youth? No. All right, you can do show me the answer or keep trying. And I always like to keep trying. There we go. Check. There you go. To show where Gandhi got his inspiration for his ideas of nonviolence. So once you know the answer, double click, copy, and Control V for paste or right click for paste. All right, that's number one, and you can number it number one, whatever. Go to the next one. What were some of the inequalities experienced by Indians in South Africa? Select all that apply. Okay, they could not vote. They could own only a little property. They were owned by other people as slaves. They paid an additional tax for being Indian. Well, I don't think they were allowed to vote. I don't think they were able to do that, and I don't think they were able to do it. Let's check. I got it right. So what you would do is you would copy and paste. Oh, hold on. First, I've got to copy the question. Copy and Control V. Let's do this. And then you would do all of the, I'm just going to do all of this. Copy, and then I'll take out the one that's wrong. Take out the one that's wrong. Okay, and you're going to do that with each one that comes along. I'm not going to do it with each one. I think y'all get the idea. All right, the next question. Why did Gandhi originally go to South Africa? A, to fight injustice. B, to establish his legal career. C, to find out how Indians in South Africa were being treated. Or D, to escape the punishment of a theft he had committed. Put your answer, check it, copy and paste into your review document, and then you're ready to move on. What does Satyagraha mean? Satyagraha. I don't say that word. Sorry. What does that word mean? A, nonviolence. B, the pursuit of truth. C, Natal Indian Congress. Or D, the Untouchables. Pick your answer. Check it. Be sure you get it right. Once you know the correct answer, copy and paste into your review document. Why did Gandhi change his manner of dress? A, he wanted to wear clothes made by only Indians. B, the return to the hot climate of India was difficult. C, he wanted people to see when he was on a hunger strike. Or D, he knew the British disliked the traditional Indian dress. Pick your answer, check it, copy and paste the question and correct answer into your review document. And that is all of those questions. So we're ready to go back up here, and I'm going to go ahead and expand. And also, don't forget to go ahead and go back and answer these questions. This will help you, and you can use this when you're on the test. Okay, go back and answer these from that graphic organizer. Test your knowledge of what you've learned about Gandhi. So again, you're going to do this. Complete the following sentence. Gandhi's sense of justice was based on A, kindness, B, independence, truth, C, truth, or D, non-cooperation. Check your answer. When you know the correct answer, copy and paste into that review document. Then you're going to click on this down here. Gandhi's methods. Gandhi opposed protest methods that involved violence of any kind, but that does not mean that his methods were passive. In fact, Gandhi's entire life was based on putting truth into action. Check out the many things Gandhi did to fight injustice against his people. He wrote letters to newspapers, talked to government officials, held peace protests, started Natal Indian Congress, boycotted British goods, removed children from British schools, refused to pay British taxes, fasted until life was improved for untouchables, burned British clothing, and encouraged Indians to spin cloth and plant food. Gandhi's leadership helped to ease Indians' transition from British colony to an independent nation. Slide 3. Now consider all of Gandhi's actions. Which of the following words describe Gandhi's behavior? Select all that apply. Self-sacrificing, peaceful, tireless, violent. Check your answers. When you know the correct ones, copy and paste them into that review document. Gandhi said, "My life is my message." How was his life his message? A, he constantly repeated himself to anyone who would listen. B, he wanted the people of India to live in the same way he did. C, he hoped to die a martyr as an example to the world. Or D, he sought to exemplify truth and justice the way he lived his daily life. Put your answer, check it. Once you know the answer, be sure to copy and paste that into the review document. Read the following passage from the story and then answer the questions that follow. Once a mob of white South Africans threw stones and rotten eggs at Gandhi. Officials offered to take the members of the mob to court, but Gandhi refused. What is the use, he asked. I'm sure that when the truth becomes known, they will be sorry for their conduct. Complete the following sentence. Gandhi wants the mob to A, apologize to him, B, know the truth, C, protest against the officials, or D, go to court. Pick your answer. When you know, check it. When you know which one's right, copy and paste to your review document. And we are ready to move on. Okay, I'm going to have to pause here. Hopefully it will save my recording and I will pick this back up when I can. So hopefully bear with me. Okay, I'm back with you for a little bit. Anecdotes. Authors using anecdotes to introduce a topic, a person. An anecdote is a brief story or an incident that offers an example or is amusing. Vanessa Wright chose to introduce Gandhi using the anecdote. Read the passage from Mahatma Gandhi, Truth in Action. Thief, thought Mahatma Gandhi, I am a thief. 15-year-old Mahatma looked at the gold in his hands. He had stolen it from his brother. It was not his first theft. Gandhi chooses to repeat his bad behavior. Earlier, he had stolen coins from the family servants, but now the gold in his hand burned like hot coal. He sat down and wrote a letter of confession. He feels guilty about his theft to his father. Would his father punish him? Mahatma watched as his father read the note. Tears rolled down the father's cheeks. Gandhi expects anger, but instead sees only sorrow from his father. Wetting the paper, but there was no scolding. Silently, his father tore the letter into pieces. Later, Gandhi realized that in his father's response, he had seen the principle of ahimsa, of nonviolence in action. He dedicated his life to that principle. What does the anecdote reveal about Gandhi? Think about your answer. Although he becomes a respected religious leader, he is human and imperfect. How did his father's response affect Gandhi? Gandhi learns that anger and violence are much less effective than nonviolence. It changes the way he views the world. Thinking about Gandhi, what do you think about the following questions? Use what you've learned from the text and video to respond. Then compare your answers to those of your classmates. Gandhi was neither a poor man nor an untouchable. He was a lawyer, educated in England, and well-traveled. How do you think his own experiences helped him fight injustice in India? Arnold's answer. I think Gandhi probably saw what life was like in other countries like England and realized that people should be treated equally, no matter what their race is or how much money they have. When he returned to India, he had examples to use when he fought for equality for his people. Karen's answer. Since Gandhi was a lawyer, he knew how to do things legally. He knew what he could do to protest legally and what he couldn't. This way, he could organize protests that would not get out of hand. Gandhi said nonviolence is the greatest force at a disposal of mankind. It is mightier than the mightiest weapon of destruction devised by the ingenuity of man. How is nonviolence a powerful force? What do you think about nonviolence? Explain your answer. Jeremy's answer. Nonviolence is powerful because it shows you have passion for your ideas without going too crazy. If you could show your dislike for something in society without yelling and lashing out, lots of people will listen to you and maybe decide to agree with you. Dakota's answer. Nonviolence is powerful because you can say a lot without saying anything. For example, if my friends and I stop shopping at a store where sexist posters are up on the walls, the shop owner will understand that he can't offend his customers and expect them to return. I think nonviolence is cool because it makes a strong statement in a quiet way. On 202. The top. Lesson check. Check your knowledge. The way ideas are presented can change how that information is understood. When we choose the right words and spell them correctly, our message is much different than if we lazily throw words into a sentence. In addition, the text of a story can give the reader much different information from a video based on the same topic. It's just as important to think about how information is presented as the information itself. Answer the following questions to check your knowledge. How can I use spelling rules to improve my skills? Think about your answer. Knowing spelling rules can help you when you need to spell a word with which you're not familiar. If you can remember the rules, you can figure out how to spell a word. 2, what are some tools I can use to help check my spelling? Think of your answer. You can use a dictionary or grammar book to help you with rules for spelling. With computer programs, you can check spelling, but these do not check that you are using the words correctly. Number 3, what do you think is important to remember about Mahatma Gandhi? Think of your answer. Gandhi dedicated most of his life using nonviolent protest to draw attention to and change unfair treatment of any group of people being discriminated against. His teachings heavily influenced other movements, such as the civil rights movement in the United States. Number 4, what are some facts you learned in the story about Gandhi? Think of your answer. There are many facts in the story, including where Gandhi was born, where he lived during his life, his achievements, and the situation surrounding his death. Remember to complete all the activities for this lesson before taking the quiz and have those things pulled up now. When it gives you this, that means you need to pull the story back up. Pull your graphic organizer. Be sure it's complete. Pull up your review document where you've copied and pasted all those multiple choice questions. Then and only then are you ready to click the next button. Which is the assessment. Okay, once you click on this, you're committed. Don't start on this unless you have time to finish it. Get all of those items pulled up, the story, your graphic organizers, not just from this lesson, but from 107. Have those out, reference back to them. There's no reason to make a poor grade on these OLS lessons when you can look back at the stories and the organizers and everything, okay? You'll click on this, you have 3 opportunities to make an 80 or better. If you don't make a good grade on the first try, go back, watch this video again, slow down, take better notes. Have them pulled up. Look back more while you're taking the quiz. Be sure that you're proving your answer. If you're still unable to pass it after the second time, please set up a time to meet with me either in Help Lab or in a small group or one-on-one session so that I can help you try for your third and final attempt. All right, if you have any questions, you know where to reach me. Have an excellent day. See ya. Bye.